This is ZooG from Angelspit and you're watching M3 Radio. Rock!
Flashmates built to fade. Fuck the revolution. The money's real, but the blood is fake. Fuck the revolution.
How do you really describe the... Can you really even fit into a genre? Because you're like industrial,
Yeah,
you're
this is a real problem that we have, is that because we're from Australia, in Australia everyone fits together. Like, you know, you go to a goth club and it's goth, fetish, industrial and metal, because it's so small. So therefore, you know, and even the big indie record, the indie radio station in Australia basically plays everything that the middle of the road channel won't play. So you get everything on there. You get Rammstein or whoever, and mostly new emo music and whatever.
So
Yeah,
it's
all gets,
not really so...
yeah, it's not really set. Like, there's a lot of smaller community stations that will have, this is where we play loud music. So as a result, Australians, I think, are very open-minded. That open-mindedness does not translate too well when you go overseas.
No?
Because, well, it does, but like in the USA and in Europe, there's, well, there used to be, there were a lot more industrial or punk or hardcore or whatever stations or different things that you can tune into.
Clubs too.
Yeah,
well,
clubs
a lot
that
of them
you
got shut down.
Yeah, so we've come with this. We've got all of these influences. Like, really our influences are in punk. Like, Henry Rollins for me is fucking God. And mixed that with KMFDM, mixed that with Noin Barton, mixed that with Skinny Puppy, mixed that with Sonic Youth, with Placebo. Like, we're influenced by people who rock. We're not really interested in pushing play on a sequencer, although a lot of that music's really awesome. But, you know, it doesn't really make you want to...
So
you know,
you'd
pick
never
your chair
go
up
on
and throw it through a window.
stage and like hit a dad tape and pretend that you're playing. Right.
Well, unfortunately in Angelspit we do, only because we can't afford to fly a drummer and everything else over. But during the recording process, everything is there in the room. Like, we have a guitarist there, we have an industrial kit there, it's all there.
Do you want to give them a shout out? Like who?
Gran, you rock! Mickey from Bard, you rock! And others. But, so, like, you know, ultimately, you know, it would be awesome if we had a band. It's just difficult cutting it from Australia over here. And, you know, that's the other thing as well, is that at what point in a live context do you stop doing electronics? Like, you know, there are a lot of bands around these days who have got a lot of their stuff is on a backing track and they're standing there with guitarists and drummers. And, you know, it's not because the bands are flaking out, it's because audiences are demanding that. The audience goes to a live thing. See, back in the 80s and early 90s, when there was a lot more rock and roll, you could turn up and you could see Nirvana, drunk, going off. And it was okay. You can see Soundgarden missing those notes. It's okay because it's rock and roll.
Right.
But these days we have pitch correction and all these other things. So the current, increasingly, the generation of rock that are really coming into the power, they expect to hear a big, full sound that a very big, large, heavy, expensive bass rig can produce.
And punk has always been really messy too.
Punk's
so
about being
you're
messy.
not gonna get that perfect
performance
on every stage performance.
And this is one of the difficulties, is increasingly people don't want to hear that. Like, they want to hear the mistakes that are going to be in there are controlled. So when we go out live, the instruments who aren't there, they're on a laptop. But then what we're doing is we're pulling in all this other stuff and spitting out chaos. And and you're pumping it into the vocoder, or you're pumping it into the Destroy X's like crazy machine of doom she has, or punching it into the modular. So we don't ever know what's coming out, and the objective is, because the backing tracks are as stripped back as we can make them, we've got all these bleeps and craziness going out live. So people can go, yeah, there's that big fat bass and the big guitar and the driving drums, but then we're going screaming our lungs out over it, and it's just as insane as we can make it in this kind of tame sort of thing.
You probably can't really
hear a boom, 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 that's all we need. So we're just going, the rest of the time.
It's fun, right?
It's great fun. I'm loving it.
So how long have you been working with Destroy X?
We met, 7 years. We've been working together for 7 years. We actually started doing a zine distro. We met through zines.
Is it only in Australia or is it?
She ran a distro called Vox Populus, and she would sell stuff all over the world. And so I came on board because it was getting too big. I was working with another band at the time that wanted to get a zine happening, and then that band broke apart, so I just hung out with her and helped getting Vox going, and she was selling 500 different zines.
Wow.
Yeah, so she needed this filing system that would, because she had 10 or 20 copies of each zine. That's a lot of zines. That's 500 times 10, that's up to 5,000 zines plus. So we had to categorize this and...
Actually, 500 times 10, not like 50,000.
Yeah, there were a lot of zines. We did have 100 of some of them. There's a lot. So we had this room full of zines that she was just mailing out like a crazy thing.
Was she doing the editing for that, or?
No, she was disjoing them. So she was actually making her own zines as well, plus getting all these other zines in. And that's one of the things about Destroy X is that she has an ability to. She is extremely. A lot of people go, oh, this is all I can handle, so that's what I'm going to do. She just goes, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do.
She's so. I mean, she looks very young.
She's very young.
Accomplished a hell of a lot so far in her career.
Yeah,
I guess the sky's the limit. Really.
It's funny that I've met. We were heavily involved in a collective in Australia called Crash Frequency, and like when she did, I think she was 17 or 18 when she did Nurse Grenade. Crunk House, she was 19 when we did that photo shoot. She writes half the lyrics and half the music, and she does all of the photo shoots, all of the fashion. And I remember in Crash Frequency, it was made of a lot of bands who were established electronically, and they were just standing back going, wow. She's got something really, really amazing with music, really amazing with the visual aesthetic, and being able to present a really big idea in a really simple and punchy form. And my thing in Angelspit is getting the actual production needed to make that happen. Like with the photo shoots, she'll make something huge. My job is to pull the people in and make sure the numbers happen.
So tell me about Crash Frequency.
Crash Frequency is a collective of Australian bands. It's still running. It's kind of slowed down a bit, but because the bands were way over there and we all wanted to reach way over here, we decided to pool our collective contacts and whatever and start releasing CDs together. And although it's in a little bit of a lull at the moment, it's been really, it's been very positive.
Awesome.
Yeah, it definitely helped Angelspit get to where we are because through the help of bands like Tanked and Icon, who are established internationally, we were able to jump on their backs and yes. And since then we've been handing everyone CDs around, so it's all working out well.
It's really cool to meet guys like you that are on the scene working it, and is there anything else you want to tell your M3 radio fans?
Touring with KMFDM is mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. It's, they are, can I swear?
Of course.
They have motherfuckers on stage. And they are the friendliest, most generous band we have ever worked with.
Absolutely.
Actually, yeah, they're just amazing, and they're so professional, and they're so together, and they're just, I don't know, when you're working with a band like this, you go, wow, we have so far to go, but there's so much we can do this. They're so encouraging. They're awesome human beings. They rock. And I do want to do a shout out to Ego Likeness. If you like dark goth, check out Ego Likeness. They're from Baltimore. They rock. They're really, really good.
Well, you're just as professional as Sasha is, and you guys are going to go as far as they have.
It's the Mohawk.
All right, EmpressRed.
Rock! Rock!